What if the part of you that is never satisfied is not only the thing hurting you, but also the thing that may make you better? People talk about perfectionism as if it is obviously a problem. They say it makes you anxious, rigid, impossible to please. They tell you to relax. Sometimes they are right, but not always. Because there is another side to perfectionism. The same inner pressure that can make you miserable can also make your work sharper, your taste deeper, your standards higher, and your life harder to fake. It can destroy you, or it can refine you. You look at something you made, something you worked on, something you tried to do well, and everyone around you says, "That's good." Maybe they mean it. Maybe they honestly cannot see the problem. But you can. Something is off. The timing is wrong. The shape is almost there, but not there. The sentence is too flat. The result is acceptable, maybe even better than what most people would do. But in your mind, there is another version of it. Cleaner, stronger, more exact. And once you see that version, the thing in front of you becomes difficult to enjoy. This is one of the quiet pains of being a perfectionist. You can often see a higher version before you have the ability, time, energy, or emotional peace to reach it. Your perception is ahead of your execution. Your taste, imagination, and standard can develop faster than your actual control. A musician can hear the performance they wanted, then listen back and hate the recording. A writer can feel the weight of an idea, then read the page and see something smaller. Even someone trying to become a better person can sense a version of themselves that does not yet exist, and that distance hurts. There is a strange cruelty in recognizing quality before you can consistently produce it. Someone with no sensitivity may finish quickly and feel proud. Someone with sharper perception may make something 10 times better, then stare at the remaining flaws as if the whole thing failed. In one life, the standard becomes a compass. It points upward. It says, this can be better. So you revise, you practice, you slow down, you notice details others ignore, you stop confusing easy approval with excellence. In the other life, the standard becomes a weapon. It does not guide you, it punishes you. Every flaw becomes evidence that you are not enough. Every mistake becomes personal. You do not just want the work to improve. You start believing your value depends on the work being flawless. And that is where the gift becomes dangerous. Think about the last time you made something you cared about, not something casual, something that carried a piece of you. Maybe you stayed up late, adjusting one small part no one else would notice. Maybe you finished a job, a song, a video, a drawing, a message, and instead of relief, you felt exposed. You were not simply looking at the result. You were looking for proof that you had talent, that you were improving, that you were not wasting your time, that the version of yourself you imagine is still possible. That is why perfectionism can become emotionally violent. The project becomes a courtroom, and your own mind becomes the judge. A small flaw turns into a sentence. But if perfectionism were only destructive, the story would be simple. We could say, lower your standards, and be done with it. Yet something uncomfortable happens when you look at people who become truly great at anything. Many of them were not easily satisfied. They noticed what others ignored. They repeated what others rushed. They felt the difference between good enough and alive. They kept reaching after social approval had already arrived. This is the part modern advice often handles badly. It tries to protect people from pain by making peace with mediocrity. But some pain is information. Not all dissatisfaction is self-hatred. Sometimes dissatisfaction is perception. It is your system saying, there is more here. Do not stop yet. Do not lie to yourself just because applause arrived early. The question is not whether you should care less. The better question is, what is your standard serving? If your standard serves the work, it can make you better. If your standard serves your shame, it will never be satisfied. There is a difference between saying, this could be stronger, and saying, I am worthless because this is not strong enough. The first one keeps the door open. The second one turns improvement into punishment. When a difficult standard feels like a challenge, it can sharpen attention. You become absorbed. You experiment. Effort feels demanding but meaningful. When the same standard feels like a threat, your mind narrows. You avoid looking at the work. You brace for judgment. You obsess over what the flaw says about you, not what it asks you to change. The work stops being a place of discovery and becomes a place of danger. But there is an even more uncomfortable layer. Perfectionism does not always stay inside you. Sometimes, without noticing, you begin to hand it to other people. You know how painful it feels when someone looks at your effort and only sees what is missing. Yet you may do the same thing to someone else in a quieter form. A friend sends you something they are proud of, and instead of feeling their courage, you immediately see the weak part. A partner tries to change, and because the change is not complete, you treat it as if it does not count. Someone you admire shows an ordinary human flaw, and the image you built of them cracks. In those moments, you are not just suffering from perfectionism. You are using it as a lens. You measure people against the version of them that exists in your head. You measure their progress against the final version, not the movement. You measure their humanity against an ideal that no living person can hold forever. And maybe this is why perfectionism is so lonely. It can make you hard on yourself, but it can also make the world feel constantly disappointing. No one arrives perfectly. Every real thing carries a crack, but real things only exist with cracks. A perfect version of a person is usually not a person. It is a projection. A perfect version of your work is often not your work. It is an image made from ambition, comparison, fear, memory, desire, and everything you have not yet learned how to do. That does not mean the image is useless. Sometimes that image is the star you navigate by. You may never reach it, but because you aimed at it, your entire direction changed. Even if the perfectionist never reaches the extreme level they imagined, aiming that high may still carry them far above the average. The impossible standard can pull a person into discipline, refinement, taste, patience, and skill they would never have built if they had only aimed for what was comfortable. The tragedy is not having a high standard. The tragedy is letting that standard convince you that every step below it is meaningless. Because growth is not always the moment you finally become satisfied. Sometimes growth is realizing that dissatisfaction can be useful without being allowed to own you. You can look at your work and see the flaws without turning them into an identity. You can want more from yourself without treating your current self with contempt. You can respect the distance between where you are and where you want to be without using that distance as proof that you do not deserve peace. Maybe maturity is not killing the perfectionist inside you. Maybe maturity is teaching it its proper role. It can sit at the table, but it cannot be the whole room. It can point to the weak line, the lazy detail, the soft excuse, the part that needs one more honest attempt, but it cannot decide whether you are worthy of love. It cannot decide whether your effort counts. Excellence without mercy becomes cruelty. Mercy without standards becomes surrender. The difficult path is learning to hold both, the hunger to become better and the humility to remain human while you are still becoming. So maybe the goal is not to be satisfied all the time. Maybe part of you should remain restless, curious, unfinished, aware that there is always another layer, another refinement, another truth hiding beneath the first attempt. But that restlessness should lead you forward, not eat you alive. Perfection may never arrive. It may always move further away as your vision becomes sharper. But that does not make the pursuit meaningless. Because sometimes the real achievement is not touching perfection. It is becoming the kind of person who reached toward it without letting it turn them against themselves. Lucid Order. Question everything.